Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
This time we're really diving into something fascinating.
Yeah.
The world of constructivist coaching.
We've got some excerpts here that you sent over from Jelena Pavlovic's book, Coaching Psychology, Constructivist Approaches.
Right.
There's-
This stuff is seriously mind-expanding.
It really is. You know, we often think of coaching as this very goal-oriented process, right?
Really.
But constructivism kind of flips the script a little bit and asks, who is the person we're coaching? What's their internal world like?
I love that. So it's like less about let's fix you and more like let's understand the world that you're building for yourself.
Exactly.
Because traditional psychology often sees personality as this fixed thing.
Right.
Like a set of traits that are just etched in stone. But constructivism says, hold on a minute. You are constantly like creating and revising your own understanding of yourself and the world around you.
Okay, so less concrete statue, more like a constantly evolving Lego masterpiece.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But how does this construction actually happen? What are the building blocks?
So think of yourself as a scientist
Okay.
who's conducting experiments throughout your life.
Okay.
You have hypotheses about yourself.
Yep.
I'm good at my job. I'm not great with relationships, and so on.
Yeah.
And your interactions, experiences, successes, failures, they all become data points.
Interesting. So it's less about this is who I am and more like this is my current working theory about myself,
Yeah.
which is always open to further testing.
Exactly.
And as you gather more data, you refine those hypotheses. Right. So you might find that you thrive in collaborative work environments,
Yeah.
but need more alone time than you initially thought.
Right.
It's about constantly updating that understanding of yourself.
That's fascinating. And that's where coaching comes in, right?
Yes.
It's less about fixing you and more about supporting you.
As you explore and refine these self-constructs, as Pavlovic calls them.
Precisely. A constructivist coach is like a thinking partner.
Okay.
They help you uncover those hidden beliefs, maybe design new experiments in your life, and make sense of the results.
So less like a mechanic, more like a lab partner in the science of you.
Exactly.
And one of the key concepts here is something that Pavlovic calls self 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
This idea that we show up differently depending on the context.
Ooh, different versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
Like a chameleon adapting to its environment.
Yeah. Yes. Tell me more.
Okay, so self one is your public face.
Okay.
How you present yourself to the world at work.
With acquaintances or even on social media.
Got it. It's our carefully curated persona for whatever stage we happen to be on.
Exactly. Then there's self 2, your introspective self.
Okay.
This is you reflecting on your experiences.
Grappling with your inner thoughts and feelings, trying to make sense of it all.
So if self 1 is the performer, self 2 is the artist reflecting on the performance.
Exactly.
Analyzing every move and every motivation.
And finally, we have self 3, which focuses on how your interactions with others shape your sense of self.
Okay.
It's recognizing that who you are with a loved one is different from who you are with a colleague or a stranger.
And all those interactions contribute to the bigger picture of you. Okay, so it's like we're collaborating with the people around us to co-create all these different versions of ourselves in
sure.
each relationship.
And what's so fascinating is that constructivism doesn't see these different selves as a bad thing.
Okay.
It embraces the complexity and fluidity of identity.
It's like our identities are less about achieving perfect integration and more about finding ways for all those different parts to coexist.
Maybe even harmonize
Yeah.
in this beautiful mess we call self.
Beautifully put. It's about recognizing that we are multifaceted beings.
Constantly evolving and adapting.
So if our identities are so fluid and adaptable.
Does that mean change itself is less about achieving some fixed end goal
Yes.
and more about...
More about the ongoing process of experimenting, adapting, and refining our self-constructs based on our experiences. It's a journey, not a destination.
And a journey needs a roadmap. So
Yeah.
how do we actually start putting this into practice?
If we're not looking at ourselves as problems to be fixed,
Where do we even begin?
that's where it gets really interesting.
Right.
According to personal construct psychology,
There are 5 key preconditions for personal change.
and they're not your typical self-help list.
5 preconditions.
Mhm.
Okay, it's like we're unlocking a secret level of personal growth here.
Weigh it on me.
Okay, but get ready.
Because these aren't your typical goal-setting tips.
Okay.
The first one is verbalizing our hypotheses.
Okay, so instead of just saying, I want to be more confident,
Mm-hmm.
it's more about figuring out what those beliefs are that are holding me back
Yes.
from feeling confident in the first place.
Exactly.
Like, I'm only confident when I have all the answers.
Or people won't take me seriously unless I dress a certain way.
Yeah.
By putting those hidden beliefs into words, we can start to examine if they're actually true.
It's like shining a light on those sneaky subconscious beliefs that sabotage our best efforts.
Okay, what's precondition number 2?
It's called loosening our network dependencies.
Network dependencies sounds a little complicated.
Help me out here. Think of it as this.
This web of external validation
Okay.
that we often rely on to feel good about ourselves.
Yeah.
Like seeking approval from specific people.
Needing to meet certain expectations.
Measuring our self-worth based on achievements.
So we've built our sense of self on this foundation
Yes.
of other people's opinions and expectations.
And loosening those dependencies means what exactly? It means recognizing when our sense of self is overly reliant on those external factors
Okay.
and starting to build a stronger internal sense of validation
It's a shift from what will people think?
to what feels true and authentic for me.
Okay. I can see how that would be really crucial for creating lasting change.
It's like we're trading in a shaky foundation for something much more solid and self-sustaining.
What's next on this list of personal growth hacks?
The third precondition is tightening our core constructs.
Okay, so after we loosen those external dependencies,
We're tightening up our internal ones.
sounds like a delicate balancing act.
You could say that,
Yeah.
but think of it...
Think of it this way. Tightening your core constructs is about getting crystal clear on your values, your sense of purpose.
what truly matters to you deep down.
It's about having a really strong internal compass that guides your decisions.
Okay, so less about pleasing others and more about living in alignment with what feels meaningful and purposeful to me.
Yes.
Got it. What's precondition number 4?
It's called increasing the permeability of our constructs.
Permeability.
So like letting our constructs breathe a little,
Yes.
being more open to new information.
And new experiences.
Exactly.
So impermeable constructs are rigid.
They're inflexible.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm only successful if.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone with more permeable constructs can see multiple paths to success.
And is more adaptable to change.
It's like the difference between a brick wall and a screen door.
One blocks everything and the other lets the breeze flow through.
Yes.
Okay, final precondition.
Yeah.
Hit me with it. The fifth one is promoting propositional construing.
Okay, I'll be honest, that one sounds a bit intimidating.
Break it down for me.
Think of it as the ability to hold multiple perspectives at once.
Okay.
It's recognizing that there's always more than one way to see a situation,
Okay.
and that your initial interpretation might not be the whole picture.
So it's like that saying, there are two sides to every story, and then there's the truth.
You've got to be open to seeing all those angles.
Exactly. Propositional construing helps us challenge our biases
Question our assumptions.
and stay open to new information.
Okay, so to recap, we've got verbalizing our hypotheses,
Loosening network dependencies,
tightening core constructs,
increasing permeability,
and promoting propositional construing.
5 mouthful phrases that basically mean we need to get real with ourselves.
Yes.
Build a solid internal foundation and stay open to new possibilities.
But knowing all of this stuff is one thing, actually putting it into practice is another.
Absolutely.
And that's where those specific coaching tools and techniques come in.
Okay.
Luckily, constructivist psychology has a whole toolbox full of them.
It's like we have all the blueprints, but we still need the right tools and techniques to build that constructivist dream house.
Exactly. And there are so many to explore. One fascinating one is called the salmon line technique.
The salmon line. Okay, now that's a name that makes you stop and listen.
What's the story there?
It's a metaphor for challenging those ingrained ways of thinking and behaving.
Okay.
So imagine drawing a line.
Okay.
At one end, you write down a quality you want to cultivate.
Let's say assertiveness.
Okay.
At the other end, it's opposite. Okay, so we're visualizing this spectrum, this continuum.
Right.
Got it.
Then you mark on the line where you currently see yourself in relation to those qualities.
Maybe closer to passivity than assertiveness at this point in time.
So it helps us visually grasp where we are now.
But how does that actually spark change
By making your position explicit, you create space for reflection.
and exploration?
Okay.
So the coach might ask, what would it take to move even slightly closer to assertiveness?
What small experiment could you try this week to test out that new position?
I love that. It's about identifying those small, manageable steps.
Those little nudges in the right direction.
Exactly. Another cool tool is what's called the ABC technique.
Okay.
And this helps kind of unpack those mixed feelings we often have about change.
Yeah.
Because even when we know change is good for us,
there's still that part of us that clings to the familiar.
Oh, absolutely. It's like that old saying, better the devil you know.
Even if that devil's is making your life miserable.
Exactly. So the ABC technique helps us explore both the advantages and disadvantages of where we are now,
Okay.
as well as the potential pros and cons of changing.
By getting it all out on the table, we can make more informed
It's
decisions
like we're doing a cost-benefit analysis.
of our own lives.
Okay.
What other gems are hidden in this constructivist toolbox?
One really intriguing technique is the fixed role exercise.
Okay.
And this involves creating kind of like a character sketch.
Of your provisional self,
Okay.
basically the you who embodies the qualities or behaviors that you're aiming for.
So it's like we're writing the character description for the best version of ourselves,
Yeah.
the one we're striving to become.
Precisely.
And then you spend a few days trying on this new persona in your daily life.
Right.
You're literally experimenting with new ways of thinking, acting, interacting with the world.
I love that. It's like giving ourselves permission to role play our way to personal growth.
But how do we make sure those changes stick?
That we don't just slip back into our old habits once the experiment is over.
That's where techniques like the perceiver element grid
Or PEG come in.
Okay.
This one helps us explore how our different selves remember self 1, 2, and 3,
Yeah.
perceive each other, and how those perceptions might be influencing our behavior.
Fascinating. So it's like we're playing mediator between these different versions of ourselves.
Helping them find some common ground and work together more effectively.
Precisely. And by fostering greater understanding and collaboration between those selves.
We create a more integrated, authentic sense of self.
This is all so insightful. But we've mainly been talking about individual growth here.
What about when we're talking about teams and organizations?
Can these principles be applied on a larger scale?
Absolutely. Constructivist psychology acknowledges that our self-constructs are shaped.
Not just by our individual experiences, but also by our interactions with others and the systems that we're part of.
Okay.
So it's a natural fit for team coaching.
So instead of just focusing on individual performance.
We're looking at the team dynamics,
Yeah.
the shared beliefs, the ways that people influence each other.
Exactly. It's about creating a space where teams can explore their shared assumptions
Challenge those limiting beliefs.
and co-construct new ways of working together.
I love how this approach recognizes that individual growth and collective growth are really intertwined.
When we support each other's development, everyone benefits.
Absolutely. And before we move on, I wanted to just circle back to something you mentioned earlier about focusing on strengths.
Yes.
Constructivist coaching has a lot in common with two other really powerful approaches.
Solution-focused coaching and appreciative inquiry.
Yes, they all seem to share this belief that people are inherently resourceful.
And capable of finding their own solutions.
Exactly.
Instead of dwelling on problems.
They shift the focus to what's working well
Okay.
and how those strengths can be leveraged to overcome challenges.
So less what's wrong and more what's right.
And how can we build on that?
Precisely. A great example of this is the miracle question.
Which is a core technique in solution-focused coaching.
Okay, if I heard of this one.
It's about imagining that a miracle happened overnight and the problem magically disappeared.
Right.
But it's not about actually believing in magic.
Okay.
It's more a way to shift perspectives.
By asking, if a miracle happened and this problem vanished, how would you know?
What would be different?
We help people envision that positive future and identify those tangible signs of progress
It's like we're shining a spotlight on the solution.
instead of getting lost in the problem's darkness.
That shift in focus can be a real game changer. And that reminds me of something else that we found in the materials as well about focusing on strengths.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to appreciative inquiry,
Okay.
which takes this strengths-based approach to a whole new level.
Instead of just acknowledging what's working, it's about actively seeking out
Okay.
and amplifying those positive aspects.
So instead of asking what's the problem, it's more like, when have you felt most alive?
Most successful.
Yes,
Tell me about those times.
precisely. It's about shifting that entire conversation from a deficit-based perspective to a strengths-based one.
Which can be incredibly transformative.
I can imagine.
Think about a time when you were really on fire.
Achieving great things.
What was it about those circumstances?
Your mindset.
The people you were with that allowed you to thrive.
Appreciative inquiry digs into those peak experiences to uncover the ingredients of your success.
That really resonates so much with the reflected best self-portrait exercise that Pavlovic talks about.
Yes.
It's almost like crowdsourcing a positive self-image.
It's a fantastic way to boost self-awareness.
And confidence.
Especially if you tend to be self-critical.
Right.
Imagine asking those who know you best, colleagues, friends, mentors,